The concert band will open tonight's concert with New Era Fanfare by Randall Standish. Please welcome to the stage Mr. Chandler Sumner and the Lowndes High Concert Band. The next selection, the concert band will perform Whispers, composed by Larry Clark and Sandy Feldstein. Whispers is a special composition for me, says composer Larry Clark. It was written together with Sandy Feldstein, but it is dedicated to him for all the great things he has done for music education during his illustrious career.
Associate Director of Bands here, and I've had the pleasure of conducting and working with this concert band. Another round of applause for these guys. I've had a blast with them, and I won't talk for a long time. I just want to kind of give props to them and to all of y'all out there, all the parents and family. So as Mr. Bowman said, this is vast majority freshmen. In the Winds, we only have one non-freshman who's playing a secondary, and then a few non-freshmen scattered throughout the percussion section. But I was talking to them the other day. It's that time of year where we have all of our spring concerts, and we're listening to all of the 8th grade bands, and I told them, guys, the 8th grade bands sound fantastic. We love everything they're doing, but I don't know if we realize how long, how much we have done and how far we've come in just a year. Listening to all of the 8th grade ensembles and what they're doing and the advanced level of music that these freshmen are playing on stage, I've just been absolutely blown away. So help show them that support. With us, we kind of get stuck in this mode of we're getting a little bit better every single day, and it's hard for us to gauge exactly how much we're doing here. But for those of you who we see them perform every so often, show them and let them know how much better that is, because it's really, really impressive stuff. But outstanding group of kids. They're fun. They drive me crazy a lot because they don't stop talking sometimes. But really, really good group and outstanding musicians, and very proud of all the work they've done. But I will hand it back over to Mr. Bowman so we can wrap up this portion of the concert.
For their final selection, the concert band will perform Sun Cycles by Brian Balmazes. This innovative work is based on the Egyptian sun god Ra and features a wealth of Middle Eastern percussion instruments. A mystical opening leads into the main theme of the work, representing the beginning of the day. The second section, Journey Through the Sky, takes the listener on a journey with Ra as he flies through the clouds following the sun's rotation. A dark passage represents his journey to the underworld before the original theme returns once more to represent renewal. The music then builds as an incredible series of modulating chords and textures, all combined to bring this piece to a tremendous and powerful conclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chandler Sumner and the Lowndes High Concert Band. Band. The Symphonic Band is made up of 10th through 12th grade members of the Lowndes Band program. The Symphonic Band will open their portion of the concert with Fable by Eric Morales. Having the sound of an epic movie soundtrack, this work was inspired by old collections of children's stories such as Aesop's Fables and Grimm's Fairy Tales. Raw, memorable themes create images that jump off the page, while an energetic and highly rhythmic pulse drives the work forward. Just as the written stories did, the music maintains a veil of darkness and intrigue that captures the imagination of the listener. Please welcome Mr. Chandler Sumner and the Lowndes High Symphonic Band. Nostalgia by Rosanna Gallant. The term nostalgia refers to a sentimental longing or wistful affection for the past, typically for a period or place with happy personal associations. This composition, dedicated to memory of Mason Schultz, incorporates two melodic themes that build to a climactic resolution utilizing a full ensemble. The music is lyrical, joyous, and ultimately hopeful, taking the listener to a place of harmonic bliss.
It's any combination anywhere from 10th through 12th graders, but especially this block this semester has really dug into the music. I think they've really bought into some of the culture that I was really trying to get them to get to. They went further than notes and rhythms on the page, and we got to have a lot of really great discussions this semester on making music and being able to do something with it. And I hope that that's kind of coming through the pieces thus far. Before I get down, I do want to thank a few folks. First of all, thank you to all the students for letting me run my mouth and teach you and tell a bunch of crazy stories all the time. But thank you to the parents for providing this program and allowing me and Mr. Bowman and Dr. Grant to teach your students. And thank you for Mr. Bowman and Dr. Grant. It is the best system of support that we have here across us directors here at the high school. We have to go and do a million things, and they've never stood back with stepping in and being able to work with the groups. Mr. Bowman dedicated a lot of time, and Dr. Grant committed a lot of time performing with us and showing us how it goes, and also working with the bands to conduct it through. So how about a round of applause for the other two directors as well. This last one's a really fun, short piece. Everyone loves a good march, so we hope you enjoy the last piece from the symphonic band.
Circus Days is one of Carl King's best-known circus marches that can be performed either at march tempo or gallop tempo. Circus marches were composed for exactly that, circus. Local bands would perform these marches to get the crowd in a frenzy as the circus master paraded the animals around the big top. For their final performance of the evening, Mr. Chandler Sumner and the Lowndes High Symphonic Band.